Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda.
Well, it's quite a very, very joyful Thursday morning, I must say, and hopefully later on I'll be sharing our joys with you, our Good Morning Uganda family. It is the 22nd of September, a Thursday, Throwback Thursday, and I am pretty sure my team here enjoys throwing it back a little bit. I don't know whether that has a lot to say about their personalities, but well, we enjoy all the throwback sessions. My name is Philomena. Welcome to Good Morning Uganda. I am with Felix Nkunda, Mollen, Kenyena, and Robert Kirabo, Nyonyintono. Maybe I really want to hear from Felix, okay? Because you seem to have quite a morning. I don't know how I can categorize it, but I would really want to know how you're doing, how are you feeling? Is the weather having a number on you?
You know you're terrible. I'm all right. How are you, Philo?
I'm great. I'm all right. I'm doing fine.
I love it when you don yourself in, right? You look spectacular and explicit, I must say. But it does, you know, red is also a symbolic of two things, love and danger. Depends where you fall in relation to those two tanglements.
I'm a woman who loves love, and I love spreading love.
Does it come with danger?
Well,
I smoke some of that today, but nevertheless, Philo, something I should also tell you. Today being Thursday, you did talk about a throwback.
yes.
Or one of those days where we do reminisce about the things that did happen a couple of years ago. Now, there's this thing we used to do at school. Remember when they used to send us for brooms, toilet paper?
Oh yes.
A rake?
A rake?
That's the thing, man.
Oh
I've been here thinking about the things I used to take to school. Mostly panga, wheelbarrow, man. Like, dude, like, what were these things for? Like, I never saw anyone cutting a tree in the school because there were hardly trees.
Yes.
Like, for example,
Yes.
Shimoni down here. But then you had to take like a ream of paper.
Oh yes.
So at least, okay, the basic time of primary. There's a ream of paper,
2 brooms.
Two-
And there were always 2 brooms.
2 toilet papers, 2 brooms,
Yes.
1 ream of paper. Now, here's the thing. The time you would go to use the sort of like toilets, and you never find tissue. Like,
Yes.
I just, the logic never works for me. Like, I've never understood why that happens like that.
Well,
And that's how we used to say teachers used to take our toilet paper.
yeah, because
And
I
our
mean,
brooms.
it would make a lot of sense. When you look at the children these days, they will actually walk up to a teacher and ask them, why do we not have tissue in our toilets?
Those
They
kids
are
are
that
good.
assertive compared to us back in the day. How are you going to walk
How
up to
would you
your
ask a teacher
to your
for
class
tissue?
teacher and ask them why you don't have toilet paper when you know, to where it's supposed to be? But I mean, look at us. Things have changed. Children are more assertive. They're more confident. You know, they demand accountability, and that is what we want.
For me, Philo, the biggest question today, and probably for all these guys here with us on set, is what is that most weird thing they asked you for as a requirement at school?
Toilet paper?
No, like anything weird. For me, I remember when I was like, maybe they asked me for barbed wire.
Yeah. Yes.
There was that barbed wire.
Robert must have something to say about that. Good morning, Robert. I'm pretty sure.
Different.
I love the morning to you, the team, and of course those watching us. Love the morning. But when you hear someone in school talk about barbed wire, you know that was a result of a punishment of escaping.
Or paint.
Masaranga sengenge, you
Yes.
may pose in, and they will tell you to go back and come with barbed wire. You know, that is just obvious. Anybody, I stand to be corrected or challenged on that. Then for me, one thing I remember is contributing to the bus that I never even... I found one of my cousins had been in that school for 6 years and he had contributed for a bus, a school bus. I was there 4 years contributed to a school bus. And at the end of the day, I leave the school without even sitting in the school bus. So, and also library, where you had to come with some books.
Yes.
And these are the books for the school. You don't even have anything to do with them. When you come with this dictionary, you come with what? After, they're just put in the library. Okay, you could go and use them. But I would ask every person. But what hurt me was the school bus for sure. The school
You can
bus.
go back and ride in the school bus now, but I think if it's both anyway.
Or at least, but if you're sure that the bus was finally purchased for the school, you can rest assured knowing that your money did something, even if you're not a direct beneficiary, but you did contribute to something. I really want to hear from Mollen. Did you ever fall culprit somewhere? Were you ever expelled or suspended, or maybe got some other
I can
punishment?
answer that for Mollen, trust me.
Good morning, Mollen.
Yes, a very good morning to you. And of course, I want to say good morning, Uganda. Philomena, I was a good girl. Guess what? As a good girl. And I remember at one point, I was awarded a certificate of discipline.
Yes.
At my O level. That was from St. Mary's. And I stood and I was like, wow, I am the most disciplined in the entire school. I have a certificate to show for it. So
I
you
don't
can
know,
only
Mollen. I don't know,
imagine.
Mollen, but I have
I have proof to that.
How
That I
life
was.
changes.
How life changes. I'm still a disciplined person. But Philomena, you guys brought up a good point. Let me tell you, things have upgraded. Schools have upgraded now. I know of a school where they no longer specify that you bring a rim or toilet paper. They just say requirements, and they give you a bank slip for that.
Yes.
So you pay around 300 for the requirements. And that is where all that is. So we feel comfortable with that because they're just asking you for money. But that is the same thing that we would have done if they had specified, and maybe it would even be less
Does that
expensive.
include building? Is it building?
No, that is
funds?
again
Usually that's
on
a
the
bit
tuition.
different.
These
That's
are
a whole
requirements.
different,
The
yes.
rim, the rake, the brooms, or whatever. Now for them, they just put it in that, and they give you a bank slip for it. And also, one thing I used not to like is how they would, ask for money to go for trips. And some of these trips, you get there and you still have to fend for yourselves. And schools actually still do that. Like, I also know of a school where I have a kid, and they were asking us for 5 million to take them to Dubai. But guess what? At the same time, while they're asking for all that money to take the kids to Dubai, they want you to actually pay for certain stuff for them to go with. So I'm like, okay, what is this money doing? And they're supposed to be covering everything. So I think schools have just gotten smarter, and they are still going to be extorting some of these monies from us in the name of we need this,
I mean, we've
we need
had
that.
quite a conversation here amongst the four of us, how schools have been commercialized now. They're treated as businesses. You know, if I can get money out of my school, whether I'm a head teacher or a headmistress or whatever it is that I am, whatever position I'm holding in this education institution, I must make sure that I create a side hustle out of it. So if you see school heads asking for all these crazy amounts of money, clearly there is some money that is going somewhere.
They're
You
just-
should be at their side hustle.
Absolutely. Yeah, contribute. I did
And
not
if you
want to come
feel,
off.
if you want to feel the
Yes.
pain, have an indisciplined child. Felix has just given us a testimony to that. They will tell you
Have a what?
suspension.
Yeah, when you brought barbed wire, it was
she
because
guy.
you were in this
Yeah, you know, this barbed wire, he could have brought barbed wire, poles,
know,
cement.
I had my issues, but Philo, sorry, just to take you back about the same thing we're talking about. On top of these requirements, what was the worst punishment you had in school? Like, I'll tell you. I remember this guy, chemistry teacher. Even we had even given him a nickname called Cheney, and that guy one time told me to put my legs up on and then my hands down. And now you know what happened. You know how I think it's in S2, S3, and then I think my collar went out, and I think I had a dirty undershirt. So that was the beginning of the rhetoric. Nigga told me, Soko JK Sati, put off your shirt. So I had to address in front of the class, man.
Very, very embarrassing.
And now I met this guy,
Yes.
I think in my third year in law school, I met him somewhere in town. And the nigga was laughing at me. I'm like, dude, why even smiling? He's there saying, what about Tukujem? I'm like, people are so dry. Like,
But I've heard stories where very many people have shared their experiences back when they were in school. Most of them are quite very traumatizing.
Punishments,
and they will tell you, if I
you.
ever met my teacher right now, I don't know what I would say to them, because the way they treated us was not right. But there are
By the
people
way, teachers,
there are people who cultivated very
teachers,
good relationships
honestly,
with their
Philo,
parents,
teachers
rather
need
with their
to-
teachers.
That
they need to
story.
tone it down. They need to tone it down. Like, honestly, actually, me, I'd sworn never to marry a child of a teacher.
I think it's also
Because of
because
those experiences.
It's also
I
from
swore.
It's also
Now you
from
see.
your experience or your behavior while you were in school. Not all of us
Because
have
Mollen,
the
you were
same
never
story.
punished.
I was never in a group where I have to be punished to that level.
Hey.
And also remember that some of these guys that were actually usually sent home or punished, they were indisciplined. All you had to do is be. If I met my teachers right now, I would be thankful, because these guys actually shaped me.
Yeah.
I don't think I would have performed the way I performed if it weren't for most of these teachers putting me in
Okay.
shape.
Robert
celebrate them.
Robert has a different
Yeah,
experience
remember,
altogether
the
with
worst
Felix.
punishment I got.
Yes.
We had this teacher, he was called Fred Chijambo. He would overstay his lessons, and his lessons were usually towards lunch. So I was this very short, tiny person. Now, you know,
Not
when
much has changed, Robert.
no, of course I've changed. Come on, I'm not tiny. But this group of, so we agreed that we all shout, "Such!" You know that thing?
Yeah.
And now, guess what? It's such. So we said, okay, 1, 2, we go. The rest kept quiet, and I came out very loud and clear. It's such. Said, oh, Nyonyintono, come. Came in front, and this man tells me, you're going to get me. We had a tree around the quadrangle. He told me to pick
Quadrangle.
3 million flowers. And then 3 million.
I very much want to know. We'll be listening to the other part of this story. I don't know whether Robert was able to pick the 3 million flowers or
was
not,
beaten in
or
front of
maybe he's still picking the flowers. But we'll
I'm
be
going back for
finding.
the school van.
We'll be finding that out. But also getting back to the news front, there is a lot happening. There is a lot when it comes to the East African crude oil pipeline. The very many conversations, the ugly, the nice, the provocative, the intriguing. All those conversations are coming as a result of the eco. But we'll be talking about that much later on. For now, we look into some of the other stories that are happening right here in Uganda and of course elsewhere. We'll start off with you, Robert.
And we will begin with yesterday, where President Yoweri Museveni said Uganda would not have developed if the citizens had not embraced the unity initiated by the National Resistance Movement, NRM. Government, which the other past governments failed to achieve. President was addressing the gathering at the 5th Bendikito Kiwanuka Memorial Day in Kampala under the theme Bendikito Kiwanuka, Reflections on the Independence of the Judiciary in Modern Times.
The Prime Minister of Uganda, Robin Anabanja, has reiterated Uganda's commitment towards women emancipation during the United Nations General Assembly platform of women leaders. Now, the assembly that is going on at the Trustship Council Chambers of United Nations headquarters in New York involves women heads of state, government aides during the high-level week of the same, where we see the assembly, and each of them in September did come out to discuss the priority issues on the international community's agenda and to identify solutions to today's complex and interlinking challenges of women.
The government has unveiled a 10-year disaster risk management plan to enable sufficient and effective response to disaster situations in the country. The funding move was set to elaborate targets to ensure Uganda is prepared to prevent, build resilience and respond to natural disasters. This was at the office of the Prime Minister, where the third Deputy Prime Minister Rukia Nakadama emphasized the need to enhance funding for disaster management.
Court in Luweero district did grant bail to the son of former minister without portfolio Alhaj Abdul Naduli, Jakana Sulaimani Naduli, last Wednesday, that was on the 21st of September, for a cash bail of shillings 5 million, with his sureties required to pay shillings 10 million on non-cash. Now, Jakana was arrested by security operatives early this month and slapped with charges ranging from cyber harassment, practicing secretarism against the Banyarwanda tribe in Uganda, and in a case which City Socialist Frank Gashumba says will act as a strong warning to whoever intends to copy from such kind of character.
And elsewhere, Russia must face just punishment over its invasion of Ukraine. President Volodymyr Zelensky told the UN General Assembly in New York. In a pre-recorded video, the Ukrainian leader called for the creation of a special war tribunal and detailed alleged war crimes by Russia. He also set out a peace formula, including more military support and to punish Russia on the world stage. His address received a standing ovation from many of the session's attendees. In his introductory remarks, Mr. Zelensky accused Russia of causing catastrophic turbulence with its illegal war. He spoke on the same day Russian President Vladimir Putin called up 300,000 military reservists for duty, a move which prompted rare protests on the streets of Russia. Mr. Zelensky said the move showed his enemy was not serious about peace talks. He condemned recently announced plans in Russian-occupied areas of his country to hold so-called referendums on joining Russia, a plan denounced by Western leaders at the UN on Tuesday. And crossing over to Mahsa Amini, 9 people are now reported to have been killed at protests in Iran, sparked by the death of a woman detained for allegedly breaking strict hijab rules. Among those reported killed is a 16-year-old boy shot dead when security forces opened fire on protesters. The unrest has spread to more than 20 major cities, including the capital, Tehran. Videos posted online from Wednesday's unrest showed women waving their headscarves in the air or burning them. No to the headscarf, no to the turban, yes to freedom and equality. Protesters were heard chanting at a demonstration in Tehran. In an address to the UN General Assembly, US President Joe Biden said Americans stood with the brave women of Iran who right now are demonstrating to secure their basic rights. He spoke after Iranian President Ibrahim Raisi rejected calls from Western powers to respect women's rights. The hardline Shia Muslim cleric accused them of double standards, citing the discovery of unmarked graves of indigenous children in Canada and the treatment of the Palestinian people.
Well, moving on, the United States military has said that it killed 27 Al-Shabaab fighters in Somalia's central Hiran region, where the country's army and allied forces have launched an offensive against the group in last month. In a statement on Wednesday, the U.S. Africa Command, AFRICOM, said it carried out an airstrike against Al-Shabaab fighters who were attacking Somalia military forces near the town of Boulevard on September 18th. AFRICOM said no civilians were injured in what was the largest combined Somalia and African Union transmission mission in Somalia offensive operation in 5 years. The U.S. has been carrying out airstrikes in Somalia against Al-Shabaab, an armed group that is linked to Al-Qaeda, for years. A Sunday strike in Boulevard, about 200 kilometers north of the capital Mogadishu, was the 60th recorded so far this year, according to AFRICOM. Residents of the Hiran region say that Al-Shabaab's torching of houses, destruction of wells and killing of civilians, combined with demands for taxes amidst the worst drought in 40 years, has pushed locals to form paramilitary groups to fight alongside the government. Earlier this month, Al-Shabaab fighters killed at least 19 civilians and destroyed trucks that were delivering food aid in the attack in the area. Ali Abdouale, a country leader in the town of Buladwin, told the Associated Press news agency by phone that Al-Shabaab had made life for residents so miserable they had to fight back. Away from that, climate activists call on World Bank President David Malpass to resign. Now, David Malpass refused to say if he believed in man-made climate change, the scientific consensus on the matter. Now, climate scientists have urged US President Joe Biden to remove him. Well, climate activists are calling for resignation of World Bank President David Malpass after he failed to state that he accepts the scientific consensus on climate change. Now, Malpass has refused several times to answer the question of whether he believed in man-made climate change, raising doubts about the bank's lack of commitment to stop funding fossil fuels to instead engage in measures to limit climate change or support countries dealing with loss and damages. Now, journalist David Gales asked Malpass to respond to an allegation by former US President Al Gore claiming that he was a climate denier. To which Malpass responded that some critics might be unaware of what World Bank is doing. He went on to state that the World Bank climate funding was by far the biggest of any international financial institution. Now, after several failed attempts to get a straight answer, Gale said, "Let me just be as clear as I can. Do you accept scientific consensus that man-made burning of fossil fuels is rapidly and dangerously warming the planet?" To which the answer was not confirmed.
Well, we also do advocate for you to be healthy and to do whatever it takes to make sure you achieve that 100%. Robert, do you agree with me on this?
Oh, definitely I do, and that is why I carry these bottles. Hallelujah ginger tea, hallelujah turmeric drink, and hallelujah banana fruit juice. What these do is they boost your immune system. We need you alive. We need you strong. We need you to enjoy this lovely country. You know, every weekend there is party after party, but also there is work that you should do. And how do you fit in all this? Not missing your obligations to work and not missing the interesting various occasions of partying by being alive. These products are just 1,500 each bottle. I'll tell you, you'll be able to enjoy everything as you plan to, but also save a lot of money because you'll be healthy and you won't go to hospitals for treatment. So get yourself one.
Well, it's a Throwback Thursday, and indeed we are throwing it back a little bit. But before we get into the throwback, Chum, I just want to hear from you. What is the one thing you've heard about an artist called Lucky Dube? And maybe to just start off with you, Mollen. I don't know if you're young enough for Lucky Dube to know Lucky Dube, or old enough. I don't know. I stand to be corrected. But you've heard of that artist, right?
Yeah. And guess what, you guys? I'm actually not as young as I look. I know of Lucky. I know of Lucky
Your looks
Dube.
betrayed you.
I know, right? I know he's a legend, and of course we've danced to his songs even up until now. His story is very encouraging, and of course his music was lifting a lot of African spirits. I think for once Africans really believed in this guy, and to the extent that South Africans were even willing to get him into office. But that's the kind of story that Lucky Dube did pose to us, and for me, listening to his music, that's the best throwback for this Thursday.
Robert, I don't know if you were still around or if you were in the country by the time he came to Uganda. I remember I was a very little girl back then, but did you ever hear about that concert?
Yes, it was in Nambole.
Yes.
By then, Nambole was not so often to many people. If I remember very well, Nachivuvu. I may not be very sure, but of the venues, because I wasn't also mature enough to report. But at least I know big people that went those days that had the money, had the permission. You know, there are days when you don't have the money, you don't have the permission. Someone still has authority over you.
Yes.
And you can't ask daddy, allow me go to Lucky Dube. in whose home? So that's why. But one thing I know, it was massive. Massive. It was really a massive concert, and of course, Lucky Dube being a legend in music, one thing that I always wondered was his songs were about apartheid, fighting for victory, you know, but we would enjoy and dance to them. Someone is shouting, "I'm a slave, there will be no schools anymore." Then people are shaking, dancing about reggae. This guy is talking about pain.
But his songs really had a very good message. Felix, were you in attendance of that concert, or you were too young to be in attendance?
Absolutely, because that concert was either between 98 or 2002, between that time, and I think I was a primary 3 or 4 around there. But because
98, you were in
No, I said between, around that time, because in 2000 I remember I'm sure I was in B4. That one I'm sure I was in B4.
What is the problem?
In 2000?
Well, I was alive. I was there in those
That's
times.
the most important thing.
But there's this song Lucky Dube called "Kiss the Frog." Man, listen to that song, and every woman should listen to that song.
What?
The story behind it is this one of the Beauty and the Beast.
Okay.
He used that kind of analogy, and he talks about like you can't get a frog and telling the woman. Actually, he was talking about telling like a daughter, you can't think you're gonna get a man in form of a frog and kiss them and they become a prince. You get it? Like when you get a bad man, don't fall in love thinking you're gonna change
This
them.
person.
So for me, that song called "Kiss the Frog," I love it. But of course, I know a couple of other songs of Lucky Dube. You know, "Black and White." It talks about no one can stop reggae. There's Lethal Weapons. Of course, so much. I just can't keep going.
I feel like with all his songs, he was leaning in more into the realistic part of
Absolutely,
life. And
absolutely.
I mean, if you can relate to the message that is coming in a song, I mean, why wouldn't you love it? Because this guy was trying to project everything that was happening in an ordinary person's life. Well, because it is a Throwback Thursday, we're going to give you one of the greatest hits from this man, Lucky Dube. Whether you were in attendance of that, concert or not, at least you know who this man is. He went down in the books of history, and his legacy is still living on. We'll be back after this, and we'll be getting into the Good Morning Uganda newsreel.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda.
Well, it's quite a very, very joyful Thursday morning, I must say, and hopefully later on I'll be sharing our joys with you, our Good Morning Uganda family. It is the 22nd of September, a Thursday, Throwback Thursday, and I am pretty sure my team here enjoys throwing it back a little bit. I don't know whether that has a lot to say about their personalities, but well, we enjoy all the throwback sessions. My name is Philomena. Welcome to Good Morning Uganda. I am with Felix Nkunda, Mollen, Kenyena, and Robert Kirabo, Nyonyintono. Maybe I really want to hear from Felix, okay? Because you seem to have quite a morning. I don't know how I can categorize it, but I would really want to know how you're doing, how are you feeling? Is the weather having a number on you?
You know, you're terrible. I'm all right. How are you, Philo?
I'm great. I'm all right. I'm doing fine.
I love it when you don yourself in, right? You look spectacular and explicit, I must say. But it does, you know, red is also a symbolic of two things, love and danger. Depends where you fall in relation to those two tanglements.
I'm a woman who loves love, and I love spreading love.
Does it come with danger?
well.
I smoked some of that today, but nevertheless, Philo, something I should also tell you, today being Thursday, you did talk about throwback.
Yes.
One of those days where we do reminisce about the things that did happen a couple of years ago. Now, there's this thing we used to do at school. Remember when they used to send us for brooms, toilet paper?
Oh, yes.
A rake?
A rake?
That's the thing, man. I've been here thinking about the things I used to take to school, mostly panga, wheelbarrow, man. Like, dude, like, what were these things for? Like, I never saw anyone cutting a tree in the school because there were hardly trees. Like, for example, Shimoni down here. But then you had to take like a ream of paper.
Oh, yes.
So at least, okay, the basic time in primary. There's a ream of paper.
2 brooms. And there were always 2 brooms.
2 toilet papers, 2 brooms,
yes.
1 ream of paper. Now, here's the thing. The time you would go to use the sort of like toilets, and you never find tissue. Like,
yes.
I just, the logic never works for me. Like, I've never understood why that happens like that.
Well,
and that's how we used to say teachers used to take our toilet paper.
Yeah, because I mean,
brooms.
it would make a lot of sense. When you look at the children these days, they will actually walk up to a teacher and ask them, why do we not have tissue in our toilets? They are that assertive compared to us back in the day. How are you going to walk up to your class teacher and ask them why you don't have toilet paper when, you know, to where it's supposed to be? But I mean, look at us. Things have changed. Children are more assertive. They're more confident. You know, they demand accountability, and that is what we want.
For me, Philo, the biggest question today, and probably for all these guys here with us on set, is what is that most weird thing they asked you for as a requirement at school?
Toilet paper?
No, like anything weird. For me, I remember when I was like, maybe they asked me for barbed wire.
Yes.
Was that barbed wire?
Robert must have something to say about that. Good morning, Robert.
I'm pretty sure. Different.
I love the morning to you, the team, and of course those watching us. Love the morning. But when you hear someone in school talk about barbed wire, you know that was a result of a punishment of escaping.
Or pain.
Yes. And they will tell you to go back and come with barbed wire. You know, that is just obvious. Anybody, I stand to be corrected or challenged on that. Then for me, one thing I remember is contributing to the bus that I never even... I found one of my cousins had been in that school for 6 years, and he had contributed for a bus, a school bus. I was there 4 years contributed to a school bus. And at the end of the day, I leave the school without even sitting in the school bus. So, and also library, where you had to come with some books.
Yes.
And these are the books for the school. You don't even have anything to do with them. When you come with this dictionary, you come with what? After, they're just put in the library. Okay, you could go and use them. But I would ask every person. But what hurt me was the school bus for sure.
You can go back and ride in the school bus now, but I think if it's both anyway.
Or at least, but if you're sure that the bus was finally purchased for the school, you can rest assured knowing that your money did something, even if you're not a direct beneficiary, but you did contribute to something. I really want to hear from Mollen. Did you ever fall culprit somewhere? Were you ever expelled or suspended, or maybe got some heavy punishment? I can answer that for Mollen, trust me. Good morning, Mollen.
Yes, a very good morning to you. And of course, I want to say good morning, Uganda. Philomena, I was a good girl. As a good girl. And I remember at one point, I was awarded a certificate of discipline.
Yes.
At my O level. That was from St. Mary's. And I stood and I was like, wow, I am the most disciplined in the entire school. I have a certificate to show for it. So
I don't know Mollen, but I
have proof to that I was. How life changes. I'm still a disciplined person. But Philomena, you guys brought up a good point. Let me tell you, things have upgraded. Schools have upgraded now. I know of a school where they no longer specify that you bring a ream or toilet paper. They just say requirements, and they give you a bank slip for that.
Yes.
So you pay around 300 for the requirements. And that is where all that is. So we feel comfortable with that because they're just asking you for money. But that is the same thing that we would have done if they had specified, and maybe it would even be less expensive.
Does that include building? Is it building?
No, that is again
usually that's
on
a bit different.
These
that's
are requirements.
A whole different.
The ream, the rake, the brooms, or whatever. Now for them, they just put it in that and they give you
discussion when it comes to the justice system, the people who have played quite an imperative role. Now, I say this because yesterday, as a country, we were celebrating one of the greatest people we have ever known when it comes to the judicial system in Uganda. We did have the 5th Bench Wanuka Memorial Day in Kampala, where we did have quite a number of people, VIPs, that were in attendance, and they had a lot of special messages they had to share while, of course, talking about this. And one of the greatest people we did have, we had actually the President, His Excellency Yoweri Kaguta Museveni address. We did have also other special guests. And there are very many things that did come to light while they were talking to the people in attendance and Uganda at large, especially when it comes to the line of justice and the entire judicial system. Now, for the last couple of years, there have been very many questions about operations of the judicial system here in Uganda when it comes to the assessment. How has it been performing? Looking at the affordability of justice in Uganda, looking at the implementation of what they're supposed to be doing in Uganda. All these things have been questioned. There are people who are happy with the work that has been done by the judicial system. There are people who haven't been happy with that. But before we get into all those details, maybe first things first, we just need to know who this great man was and why we are celebrating him, why we were having this 5th Memorial Day in Kampala, and what impact he had and he still has on the judicial system right now as we stand. And maybe just to hear from you, Felix, first, we would love to know, this man, since your counsel, I think this would really come in handy.
It was in his robe.
Yes.
When he was studying.
A counsel here should be giving us a bigger picture of this great man.
Yeah. Well, it is only fair that he's recognized as the first, at least, appointee Ugandan, for that matter. Actually, the major purpose of his remembrance is that he was the first Chief Justice, Ugandan Chief Justice. Previously they were, but definitely they were, of course, either Asians or people from the great head protectorate of Britain. But the most monumental custody that makes us to reminisce about the late Benedicto Chiwanuka were about 4 things. One is the one that I did just say, him being at the beacon of the legalese, the rhetorical legalese for then. The second one, his active participation in political platforms then. But also thirdly is his known and given charism towards atrocities against people. Now, his background, he was able to entangle his background of the law and how he could use it to assist or highlight the few abuses against humanities then. But fourth is that he vanished. The last that was seen of him was when he was being dragged out of his chambers as the Chief Justice, and thereafter he was murdered. Now, the reason why we celebrate this day, and if you remember then when the same day was being introduced by former Emeritus Chief Justice, the Honorable Justice Bati Katurebe Magunda, he concluded to say that it is important for us to have such a day so that we don't forget the purpose of justice. Based on those 4 aspects I've broken down, we don't forget. It is not that it is stylish or this man was, but it is monumental for us not to forget the purpose of justice, which was exhibited by people like Benedicto Chiwanuka.
Yes.
So days like this cause us to approach the center of justice. No wonder if you hear some of the sentiments that were being thrown out on this day. It is a day where people say things that either are of justice or definitely that are evidence to be against justice. So Benedicto Chiwanuka is of course, for us people in Rubaga were most approximately close to him because he used to stay around that home. If you know Kabusu, around Kabusu there, I know his home, even the other one in Narukolomo. People, he's a person who, and you are definitely, of course, he was a dear one to the Buganda kingdom. So all these things make us give reason that he was the first black Ugandan to sit in that office. Secondly, he was killed for the purpose of what he believed in, which is definitely justice. But of course, later on, that his charisma against the atrocities against human beings and definitely human rights. So basically, that in a nutshell,
yes,
it's why functions like these memorial lectures are held, and definitely now we also have a statute of him at the chambers of the High Court, and definitely many replications have been given, their roads and what and all these things. He's worthy of the same.
Well, now this year's theme was focusing on the independence of the judicial arm of government. We know that ideally, per the Constitution, it's supposed to be acting on its own. It doesn't have to have any influence from any other. Independently, it operates independently. Now, when we are talking about independence of the judicial system right here in Uganda, in your opinion, Robert, how far do you think we are when it comes to this?
That is a tricky question. Philo,
he had to first go.
Because
that's how tricky it is.
You want to look at both sides of the coin.
Yes.
One, the independence of the judiciary in terms of their rulings and how they conduct their work. Where we know they are non-partisan, but also independent, should not have interference. Then I also want to look at the independence of the justice they're supposed to give to people. And I'll begin with, if you are to talk about independence of the judiciary, we have a number of a bit of nasty incidents that have happened over time. People will not forget the famous Black Mamba when they seized court in this country.
Yes.
That, in my opinion, was the first time that people woke up and said, how can this be? But over a time, it became almost a way of doing things. Where we see court say these people should have their freedom, and security agencies come and say no, they shouldn't, we still need them. So that is one that is fresh in the minds of many Ugandans, and other slightly similar incidents that have followed. So in that way, one would say. Then also I would go to the judicial officers issue things like court orders. A judge sits, listens, and then says, finally, this is my decision. And an RDC or a police of a higher rank or a politician or someone or an institution, which is not the judiciary, says no. That court order will not be implemented. And it doesn't. And the current Chief Justice has come out so vehemently on this, saying, but you should respect a court order. Once it is issued, it's not bargainable, it is not about this. Those are the recent two areas that any Ugandan will say, and this also came out yesterday, where it was raised by a number of speakers, and His Excellency replied and said, but you see, these court orders are not for the people. You know, you issue a court order of a parish that has about 500 people, and because of the technicalities and law here and there, then you're telling these people to vacate. 5,000 people to vacate in a parish, 500, for one individual to come up and either set up his house or do something else. So some of these judgments are not for the people. It's not justice for the people. It's justice for those that maybe are more placed or are more organized. So independence in that category. And also sometimes judicial officers, some have come out and said, well, some even quit cases, and they will say, for a bit of my security, for that. So, but that said, we can still say we've not had judges like the issue Felix had talked about.
Yes.
They're exercising their work. Courts are operating. They are carrying out these decisions in a manner, despite sometimes having some issues here and there. So it is a two-sided way, depending on how you look at it critically. Away from these manhandlings, these security agencies taking that, you find that one would say the judicial system in this country operates fairly, independently. And on some, apart from those, fairly independently.
Yes.
And when I talk about fair, I would say that by minimal standards, you would say there is independence of the judiciary. We've not had a judge who has passed a ruling and maybe they face punishment for that?
Oh, I can tell you many of them.
Like, meaning of maybe similar issues like Benedicto Chiwanuka, or that a judge has passed a judgment. We have countries around the world where a judge passes a judgment and he knows what I'm doing today, I may not live to see the light of the next day.
Yes.
Today they go, they do their things. They could have these kind of demotions, failing to maybe being removed from a certain case and all that. But I use the word fairly. Fairly.
Yes.
Well, there is independence of the judiciary in our country.
Okay. Now, while addressing or, speaking at this memorial lecture, President Museveni did say, yes, I understand the judicial system has to act independently, but they shouldn't be independent of the people of Uganda. Now, in most cases, we have seen security operatives go against or disobey some of these court orders. We have seen people who have been granted bail being rearrested while still on the premises. I mean, where do we strike the balance when it comes especially to this, to a system that has inconsistencies like this, Felix?
Well, I don't know if it's fair to call them inconsistencies. but picking from the mind of His Excellency yesterday, I think he gave a very, very stewardship approach to what the current president of the Law Society, that is Owundo, had said. And I think for me that exhibited his knowledge and the realm of his being president. When he said, and I want to even put it in the legal context, that you see, you're talking about independence of the judiciary, because the president of the Law Society was talking about like independence of the judiciary, interference, non-interference, as Robert has put it, non-interference, rearrest after bail and what. But the president was on point and he said, look here, what is independence? Are we talking about independence of the judicial system or independence of individuals?
Yes.
But he went ahead to question what informs the independence of these individuals. Now, in law, there's something called, there are three things that relatively inform judgment passing by judges. One, and any smart lawyer would want to attribute themselves to these three things. One is the ratio decidendi, something to do with, you must take time to understand why a judge decides that particular way. What is the ratio decidendi? What moved this judge to make such a decision? The other one is stare decisis and also obiter dictum, that what are the things that were by the ways? What are the things that mattered? Now, and this is what the president was saying, because even the judges are human beings, just like the people who commit the atrocities, like the offenders, like the victims, it means we cannot guarantee ultimately that we are going to get independence even from them. And he gave a reason that I cannot promise that these scenarios will stop, what you call interferences. They may not be able to stop, because what seemingly is justice to you may be injustice. Like Robert gave you an example. You pass an order to evict 5,000 people for one. Whose justice are you seeking? And he said, no wonder you see RDC is stopping some of these court orders.
Yes.
Because to you, to the law, it may seem as justice, but to the public domain. So, you see, the balance of justice, and this is so tricky, and it's a big challenge for justice, by the way, inter-universally, that the balance of justice up till today has been on a preponderance of the beneficiary.
One person versus 5,000 people.
It is even just justice. If it is justice when it is on your side, and it is an injustice when it is against you.
Yes.
So the question is, the person who sits to decide, how sober are they? No wonder when Honorable Mao came to speak, he said, most recent, these institutions have become laughable.
Comedians.
And do you know how we got there? Because the judicial officers have time and again not held to the expected decorum of judicial officers, and they have been swayed by characters such as corruption, okay, but also impartiality. if you look at how many judgments are overturned at appeal, and we have had this discussion many times in our corridors of law society or among lawyers, that what does this mean? How many judgments have been overturned? Shouldn't this bring question into the judicial system? But secondly, you look at the issues of execution of the cases. Time. You can't be handling a land matter for 12 years. It ceases to make sense for the person who petitioned. How do you litigate a matter for? There are matters that some of us found when we went out of school that had been there for the last 15 years, but we are still handling those. Is that still justice for the people who go to court? Now, these are the things that we must find sense when we are celebrating days like this. And this is what His Excellency re-echoed. He said, you may not cease to see this sort of interference if you don't put your own house in order. We come here to celebrate every year, but what do we pick?
Yes.
Are judicial officers actually executing justice as it should be? The hardest bit of the judiciary, and I tell this, that it does not work alone. That's the biggest challenge. And for me, this is what I expected to hear from the judicial officers.
Yes.
There are issues in as much as they have, but they may be doing their work well, but they're also called circumstantial effects that may affect how the case goes. He talked about bail again. Every time that His Excellency is talking about bail,
which has always been a big issue. People have never understood.
I think
how
for
it's
him, he doesn't just get the point of how someone
should be granted permission,
yet they
legal
have
permission.
committed.
Yes.
And this, I think, the consistency of his echoing this issue, I think now makes sense that if it is about justice, justice cannot be constant.
Yes.
These are discussions, by the way, that have challenged litigants. Justice can't be constant, that it is supposed to be like. It should be also on a balance of realities. If you've killed someone, probably you're going to kill the other witness. Like, why don't we have a shift from the canonical approach of...
It is a constitutional right, it is a constitutional right.
I don't, and that's
That
what he says all the time.
It's an insult to justice.
Yes.
For the people who have been offended.
The family,
if
they are widows, if they are
Because
wives,
you're basing on the constitution as opposed to the reality.
For us in our language here in Uganda, you say that obelanga chana chambara, like you're in line. The first one will fall in the ditch, the next one, the third, the fourth, all of them will fall because first we have to walk.
Yes.
So, and yet the law, the purpose of the law is definitely to find remedy for such mischiefs. We can't be by... For us, we are, and I think this is the challenge of the judiciary, even up till today, that the judicial practices have a clash now with society expectation.
Yes.
The judiciary people are doing the right thing, by the way. When they tell you, this is what the law says, the constitution, the procedure, but then society is facing something different. There's a clash. I think we may talk about
But don't you think there is also need to look into that eventually?
Well, Felix
Yes.
was making that. You see, I've always had an argument with him for a long time now when it comes to issues of the law, where he says what is legally right may not be morally right.
Yes.
And that also befits. And a number of lawyers I've discussed with, they talk about it is morally wrong, but legally right. And at the end of the day, it beats my understanding. But for me yesterday, while I was listening and watching all these people, what caught my concern is access to justice, Phil. Yes, you're talking about your independency, you're talking about all this, but access to justice. Fellow Ugandans and countrymen, one of the things that bothers me today, Felix, is that day by day, justice is becoming for the rich. Much as lawyers carry out pro bono, and I want to thank a number of them who try and do
Felix
this.
doesn't seem so
But I want to tell you, these issues of Omavu Tasinga Musanga, Owembuzi Tawoza Nawandi, today, how many people can have an advocate, for example? How many people can, the ordinary person? Why His Excellency comes to issues of saying that Your judgments, why they are changed or not obeyed by the RDCs and other institutions. How did this judge arrive to this judgment? Because you find that these people maybe could not even follow or understand the judicial process. This person, in one way or other, used tactics because they are advised. Sometimes people would tell even when the judgment was being passed, I wasn't there. Why? Because they could not afford justice. To me, I would look at justice as something that is freely gotten, or if relatively not that very expensive. But look at the land cases we have in Uganda today. A Kirabo Robert inherits land from a grandfather. He has been in the US, has even never come to Uganda. He's just told they have left these miles. He gets his lawyers, make phone calls here, have this land follow up. The poor people on this land cannot even afford to get an advocate. So how do we make justice affordable and accessible? To me, is one of the things I feel now is the biggest challenge. Look at how many of our people, how fast some cases are dealt with, and how long others are left. Yes, you may say there is understaffing, there is this, but I want to tell you, look at some of these cases when they happen, the swiftness in them. What makes one would say the investigation, the presence of facts and all that, but we need to address that as a nation. Why we are having mob justice today, that a person steals a mobile phone of 60,000 and they are killed, someone steals a hen, all this violence is because people know that when these people go to the realms of justice,
people have lost confidence in the justice system. They know that it will not yield what ideally is supposed to be.
They know that the rich will have ways of overcoming or going through. One, you go to many of these people that are on remand, on what? Look, the poor, you find them, what case did you commit? I did this, we fought that. Then this person who has been, even with the court, they can forward everything to have this person out. So for me, that is what I think is the biggest challenge to the judiciary today.
Accessibility and availability.
And availability.
And affordability as well. And I mean, do you think as a country we've also done any efforts in that position or in that direction to make sure that we bridge that gap? Because we clearly see that it's only a group of Ugandans that is really falling on the other, I could say, unfortunate side, and the people who have the money. But as a country also, I mean, do you think there has been some miles traveled towards making sure that we try to, cover up that gap? Or we are still in that wanting state where we're like, okay, this is what should be done, but no efforts towards it.
This whole thing of justice can even make, for our viewers out there who have been to courts and gone through some case procedures, you can even cry when you when you are at these court places, when you see. You will actually believe with me that places like Chitalia, Luzira, and some of us frequent these places because of the manner of what we do. You find that out of 10 people, you will not be surprised that at least 4 of them are probably innocent, but they are serving sentence for, are probably haven't gotten access to justice, like in the sense of justice. I remember I have a personal experience where someone told me, Nzebangano kwogera mu koti. But yet, when you listen to their story, if they had gotten a chance to speak, because they had no mouthpiece, which is probably a lawyer, or probably to be having, like some of these things, they tell you, I didn't see Nachinayogera, like justice is not, and I think this is where we need to task the Chief Justice and the whole institution now, probably Honorable Mao, Chairman Mao, that away from, let's not just look at justice from what is exhibited in courtrooms. The judiciary has come out to put avenues like mitigation, mediations, small claims, how to handle them. Now there's actually a full law about small claims, arbitrations, all these things aid. For example, land matters are a big problem, but we must find lasting solutions. Either more staffing, more funding, but also the laws are probably, now we're hitting a hard wall with the kind of laws. For example, there's a big conflict. You see, what is in practice is different from what is actually in law.
Yes.
When it comes to some of these land transactions and what. But also, Robert said something very important. Access to justice is by far limited by the cost. The cost of justice in this country is not just walking in the courtroom. It is not easy. By the way, he talked about the cost of lawyers. Legal fees in this country.
Is it only in this country or generally?
No, other countries, and
Yes.
probably first world countries, they have avenues where they provide. Even here, the Law Society has tried to make it a point for people to do pro bono and what, but it's a good.
Felix, are you
But
aware
it's
in this
definitely
country that a
wanting.
person has land, they go to court to argue, and tells a lawyer, if you win this case for me, I'd rather remain with half of my land.
And then they give you the other chunk.
I don't know if that is a problem. I
These are
don't know
things
if
that are
I don't know-
happening.
I
Maybe
don't know
it's
if
the
that's-
mode of payment that the both parties have
It's because you
agreed.
can't afford.
Yes.
So you, instead of losing everything, you rather give a half.
Actually, if you're lucky to have what to give,
Yes.
you're lucky. But for me, I think because of privatization, you may not discuss much of the legal fees and what. But for me, as if someone, individuals are allowed to represent themselves. Court gives them that right to represent them. And many people, by the way, have seen them represent themselves and they have been successful. However, the ratios are quite low. But my parting shots on this, Philo and Robert probably, and also our viewers, is that when it is time, and yet actually it is time, Uganda will be celebrating 60 years next month, if I'm not mistaken. We must celebrate our 60 years having registered ultimate progress in the line of the justice system. The justice system cannot keep being colonial, yet we are celebrating independence. There's a lot of colonial tendencies in how we do the law, and any litigant would agree. People who go to courts, there's a lot of colonial tendencies. The court structures are more deterring than appreciative. People, let's educate people about this. If we educate about the law, we will reduce crime rate and reduce backlog. I think the judiciary must be given another budget in terms of sensitization.
And also
of the
integrity
law.
of you land friends.
How?
The land friends, integrity.
Well-
if you're giving justice,
Yes.
you must have integrity. When the Bible talks, so a judge, an advocate of court must be a person of high integrity. Where we see lawyers still 10 point something for a certain woman. You people,
Land
integrity.
indeed. Remembering, of course, the Chief Justice, the first Chief Justice of Uganda, Benedicto Chiwanuka. We did have the celebrations, but also the 5th memorial lecture that happened yesterday. Now, 50 years on, what we learn from the former slain Chief Justice. How would you rate the Ugandan judicial system? In your opinion, we would really love to know from you what you have to say to that. Get onto our Twitter, #UBCGMU. Do let us know. We'll be awaiting your feedback. For now, the big stories in our dailies coming up next in the press review.
Get the 4G smartphone of your dreams today and pay as you use. Choose from the Tecno Pop 5 Pro, Tecno Pova Neo, Samsung A03 Core or Nokia C10 and pay conveniently in daily, weekly and monthly installments for a period of a year using Airtel Money. You will also enjoy free 3GB and 100% bonus data on weekly and monthly bundles every month for 3 months. Visit any D-Lite shop or select Airtel Money branches countrywide and get one today. Terms and conditions apply. Airtel, the smartphone net.
The Tales of Kasozi, brought to you by Uganda Communications Commission.
Hello?
Hello?
This is Kasozi. How can I help you?
Hey, Kaso's my brother. Long time. We last met when we were at campus. It's been a while, but you are the person I'm looking for.
Campus? Really?
Hey, you don't remember me?
Okay, so how can I help you?
I'm stuck in Gulu making millions and I need to urgently send money to my sick mother. But I can't find any mobile money agent near me. I've sent the money to your phone, as you can see the message. It might take a few minutes to come through, but I urgently need you to send the money to my mother. Let me send you her number and you send it to her chap.
My friend, I'm afraid your mom is going to die.
What?
Because I don't know you, I never went to campus, and I'm also in Gulu. So can we meet at CPS, we talk about it?
Stay tuned for what Kasozi does next.
Tofera. Refrain from unnecessary engagement with strangers over the phone. This message is powered by the Uganda Communications Commission.
When you talk about our motherland Uganda, the Pearl of Africa, you cannot fail to smile because of the smile that fills the faces of the citizens. Our nice good weather and nature that sustains us all, that enables us all to continue each in their own way because we are all different even according to each individual's work. But what joins us to become one person is the sweetness from the flavored drink Alleluia Jingati drink and Alleluia Tamarind drink. The flavor that quenches your thirst while at the same time treating and healing your body because it is 100% natural. Enjoy the drink that has got the tamarind juice in it. Made by Alleluia Reflexology, Healthy Solutions and Nutritional Research Center Limited. Get yourself a bottle of Alleluia from all shops around.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda.
The press review this morning, a daily monitor, 11 isolated over Ebola deaths rise. Now, government came out to issue the new do's and don'ts as more suspected cases are reported, markets, clubs closed, and mass attendance of barriers and weddings stopped. 5 of 7 suspected Ebola deaths in Mubende district are all from one family. Doctors' body in push to save health workers in frontline of handling the outbreak. Now, those and more details on this Ebola outbreak in the Daily Monitor, but also looking at the remembrance of Benedicto Chiwanuka. President Museveni did have something to say. We didn't want Chiwanuka to work for Amin. And there is a picture over there of him and the Chief Justice Alfonso Winyidolo and also the Deputy Chief Justice Richard Botera. Justice and Constitutional Affairs Minister Norbert Mao. Quite a powerful picture, I must say. NOP backs EU move to delay oil pipeline, and Kalangala Islands losing tourists over poor transport. Orange farming fails to deliver Teso out of poverty. And Makerere University releases private admission list. You could get the full list in the Daily Monitor this morning. And in more news, hope for farmers as Ugandan scientists develop anti-tick vaccines. It's expected to be out come 2023. Well, today in history, the 1995 Constitution was promulgated. The year was 1995. Well, do grab yourself a copy and catch that story and many more interesting ones.
And crossing over onto the new vision over there. Details on the draft school fees law. Now, the Solicitor General says charges cannot be uniform. That is the detailed story on page 6. But also in the new vision, rise, shine for the retired bush warriors. That is in the UPDF series. Details are on page 14 and 15. Now they give you a big picture right there as President Yoweri Museveni hands over the Benedicto Kiwanuka Appreciation Award 2022 to the Principal Judge Emeritus Dr. Yurukam. Now, also at it, he says he defends RDCs over Milo land disputes. That is also a story on page 3. But more in the new vision, admissions more lists districts with most students. That is also out on page 7. And of course, also talking more about the second suspected Ebola patient dying after, recording a second suspected death in Mubende district. And crossing over onto the second page, slum dwellers to earn from wastes. They're also giving you a picture right there of some women in training on how to make the briquettes from the waste products at Kisugu. That was yesterday. More of the details in there. Today in history, they take you back in 1999, where Mandela receives 20,000 fan letters. That's a good one right there.
Sports section, Daily Monitor, Tanzania's stand in Uganda's way. We're looking at the ACA Africa T20 Cup. And still in more sports news, we are looking at the UEFA Nations League. Having seen their hopes of back-to-back titles crash and burn, France resume Ligue A duties at home to Austria. You can also catch that story. And in the World Cup, Grealish tells critics to lay off England's Southgate. We are on an official countdown. We just have about 59 days to go and witness the great World Cup that everybody is highly anticipated for.
Well, and in the New Vision Sports, Nkumba will fight to the end, talking about the UFL quarter-final fixes, where Nkumba will be facing UCE and, of course, also in there, Chambogo versus Moobs. But Nkumba University is hailing for utilizing its home advantage over the defending champions, who are the UCU. Now, that and more details in the sports section for this morning. They'll also give you a picture on how some of the Nkumba University estate managers and, of course, administration right there looking out for that win. Now, VG backs Ndeje. Also, that is more of the details right there, as Vision Group CEO Don Wanyama has pledged support towards Ndeje University hosting the East African University Games that will be coming up in December. That is 2022. Inside the New Vision Sport, they're also giving you Alan's joy of homecoming. Of course, that is Alan Okello talking about more of what he can do on the national team and also more of what he has been doing across most of the teams that he has played in. Uganda picks 11 gold medals, talking about some of the Uganda's medal winners who were crowned yesterday in Arusha City. A joyful occasion right there as they continue to make us proud for that race.
The Daily Nation, I must say that Ruto did really start off on a very hot note, and he froze jobs tender payments. Now, of course, consolidating his role in a move that is likely to clip the powers of ministers and senior government officials, during the transition period. The president, through the head of public service, has also barred cabinet secretaries from foreign travel, big money expenditures, and making appointments to plan state jobs, hugely cutting their powers as they ride out their last days in office. My, oh my. And America on the trail of stolen billions stashed in Kenya. We're looking at about 30 billion Kenyan shillings. Well, another story to look out for. And look, ODM crisis meeting. I must say the Daily Nation this morning is quite hot, so catch up and see what the president is definitely up to. And you can also get the New Vision and the Daily Monitor while at it. But also what you need to grasp this morning are the traffic updates. And I want to focus on areas in Central Division here in Kampala, some of the shortcuts you could be looking at. And of course, as you're coming in from Binaisa Road, trying to connect to Yusuf Lule Road, I could say that Chira Road, in this case, is also very heavy with the traffic. We do have some long stretches of red over here, a main road where we do have cars coming in from Tinda, we have cars coming in from Mulago, we have cars coming in from Mawanda Road, or trying to make sure they find their way around town. And looking at this, the arrows clearly indicating whether you are leaving or you are getting in, but you need to be very wary of this very specific part that is already busy as of this morning. And joining onto Yusuf Lule Road, yes, it is quite an easy one for you to navigate, but there are certain spots that do have the traffic already. For example, we do have this red stretch here showing you that if you're trying to get into Kampala, well, you will be coming across some traffic hiccups here and there, so you need to ready yourself for that. But for the most part of this road, I must say, it should be easy for you to navigate as you're trying to find your way around to get to your destination. Now, Yusuf Lule Road, as you continue all the way, of course, like I did say, there are some traffic patches, so you also need to plan accordingly. However, you could decide to take a detour and use Nile Avenue to make sure that you connect all the way to Speak Road. Nile Avenue over here is quite an easy route for you to navigate. Matter of fact, if you're trying to find your location or your destination rather to the Constitutional Square, I would urge that this is the route you take because it's quite free, and this is for both sides, whether you are headed towards town or you are leaving and you want to connect back to Yusuf Lule Road. So it should be quite easy for you to navigate all the way around it. Also looking at some shortcuts, Clement Hill Road, it's also very easy for you to navigate because there is no traffic, matter of fact. Looking at Chintu Road, this over here is again another option that you have this morning to get to your destination, especially if you're headed towards the city center, and there are no problems over there for now. We're also looking at Shimoni Road 1, which is also quite a free route for you this morning. And switching it up to Chintu Road, well, again, it's also another option that you could look into this morning with less traffic, so you shouldn't be worried about that. However, as you're using Seziwa Road, if this has been your usual route, there are no hindrances as well. However, the problem comes in via Chagwe Road, where the traffic is very intense, showing over here, progressing from red to maroon. I could say that maybe this is not the ideal route you would want to have this morning if you are really time bad. So keep away from that route if you can. However, if you can't, well, you need to expect it. Looking at Tannen Avenue is also quite another route that is quite empty or very easy for you to navigate. It's not yet as busy as we have seen most of these other routes. Well, getting in onto the main road using Nakasero Road, trying to connect, there's some traffic build-ups. We do have one here, we do have another one here, so please be warned and try to make sure that you're not really caught up by the traffic. It could change any minute from now. Looking at Lumumba Avenue this morning, it's also quite empty, very easy for you to navigate through, so yes, I could advocate for it. Well, if you are trying to get to the city center, I would say that these are some of the shortcuts you should be looking into to make sure you're not caught up by the traffic this Thursday morning. And right now, I will leave you to Mollen to tell us. Mollen, the drizzles were quite heavy in some places. In some other areas, people did experience heavy rains. Yeah. So I don't know, there are people who stay in places where the heavy rains were experienced. Some of us, we can't tell the same story, but I don't know what the weather will be looking like as the day goes by.
Well, I'll tell you one thing, at least those morning rains were over a few places, but we could be looking at more systems developing later in the afternoon. But also, I think people have been looking forward to these rains, and most of them actually needed them for the planting season. I don't know whether we need those in the city center. That is where the problem seems to be. But I have no problem against the rains, except when they get in my way in the morning. Well, otherwise, I think it should be good news. We need these rains, and maybe we could be looking at brighter days ahead, but probably not today.
I think at this point I'm ready for any weather situation that comes by. I am ready for the hot weather, for the cold weather, for the wet weather. I'm good. I'm all right. Yeah. Well, I hope also you out there, our viewers, you're ready for anything. I now leave you to Mollen to give you more updates coming in from weather and climates. I want to wish you a wonderful Thursday. I am Philomena Mastiko.
Well, thank you very much, Philomena. We continue to follow up on Hurricane Fiona that has been devastating most areas within Dominican Republic as well as Puerto Rico. Now, Hurricane Fiona seems to be strengthening and headed east of Canada. Now, this is expected to make landfall tomorrow, according to the forecast that has come out today from the Canadian meteorologists, saying that this could be a devastating storm heading for eastern Canada. Now, what we do know so far is that this is likely to be hitting the area on Friday, and it could be associated with the severe weather effects, of course ranging from flooding to destruction, and it could be also cutting off power across most areas. Now, this is expected to reach that eastern end of the Atlantic region by Friday in what could be a severe weather event, and also it is powered now to be a Category 4 storm. Now, like I was mentioning even from the earlier series we were doing on Hurricane Fiona, a Category 4 hurricane would be that one that would uproot a huge tree. That is the kind of strength that we're talking about in Category 4. And of course, it is also forecast to make landfall with winds of about 215 kilometers per hour. You can imagine that kind of speed. Imagine if you're driving a car, that kind of speed. That is how these winds come in at 215 kilometers per hour. These could actually destroy everything in their path. And this is the kind of storm that is being looked at to make a landfall across eastern Canada. This has already been a destructive path through Dominican Republic and Puerto Rico, where a number of destruction has been seen over there, and of course some of the reported death. Now, the hurricane force is also expected to also take in at least a population of 100,000 by Friday. That is causing destruction across that area, according to the reports that came through yesterday from Environment Canada in the alert that they gave out. Now, this storm is shaping up to be potentially severe for the Atlantic Canada, and the alert that was issued is also showing that it could be towards southern Quebec. That is Canada's second most populous province. That means that if it were to make its way through there will be a lot of effect. And of course, this is now the fourth storm causing such events across areas of Canada, and of course expected to make landfall by tomorrow. But what is also expected is that there will be damaging winds, possibly storm surges, meaning that there could be also coastal flooding across Canada. And what is also expected is that large system and also several days of power outages in the hardest hit areas by these winds. And of course, you're looking at more vulnerable situations as Hurricane Fiona continues on its path. Now, it has already caused devastating effects across Puerto Rico, and some of the images coming through of the buildings that have been destroyed. Most of the homes are now without power. And of course, the reports are showing that 80% of Puerto Rico and Dominican Republic are without power due to this hurricane. And of course, you continue to look at more of the variations that come through with severe weather events. Now, this is just being a fourth storm, and you look at the fact that hurricane season is just beginning, meaning that there could be more to look at, especially in that area, and also the fact that we continue to ignore most of these warnings. And I'll give you an example of what is happening in Uganda right now. You look at the EACOP story and people trying to protest about it and saying, you know what, maybe climate change is a myth, maybe we just need the money. But let me tell you what, it's not about the money. And something that I got interested in yesterday is the fact that the cities of Paris and New York have joined a coalition that is of association and local authorities that are suing one major oil company, that is Total Energies. Now, Total Energies is being sued for failing to adequately fight climate change. That is, they continue to work with renewable energy, non-renewable energy in terms of fossil fuels, but also at the same time they have failed to bring out what is likely to be their course of action in terms of tackling climate change. Now, according to the Paris and New York coalition, they are saying that, look, there have been guidelines through the Paris Agreement that was made in 2015. There were also guidelines from the Glasgow Pact that was made last year in November across Scotland. But what has been done by most of these oil companies is they continue to do business as usual. They have not given a plan on how they are going climate smart, or even how they are going to avoid most of these environmental concerns. Now, Might I remind you that this is the same company also gearing up for our oil refinery in Uganda. And yesterday I was talking to a friend who said maybe it's all about the money. We need the money, which is why we're saying we should be getting our oil out there and get the money. But how about the cost of when you're going to be dealing with effects that are coming from climate change? How about the cost of vulnerability? We are seeing all these flood events rendering people more vulnerable. So people in Bali, can say all these events happening. Have you also considered those costs? But also, is that enough to cater for people that are being lost from these extreme weather events? This is where we should be assessing and making sure that, yes, we need the money, we need this oil out there one way or the other, but are they addressing the environmental concerns? Do they have a plan to make sure they are not polluting our environment? Most of these are causing greenhouse gas emissions into the atmosphere, which is causing the heat that is being trapped in there, henceforth increasing temperatures in our skies, and that is related to the flooding and the drought that we're seeing over the world, which is why most of these companies should be held responsible. And now this lawsuit is already going ahead, according to that statement that was issued yesterday from this coalition of association and local authorities that are suing this oil company. And what they have hoped for is that there will be justice. At least they stop their works until they have gotten that plan. And this adds to some of the companies that have been sued before. An example is Shell, that was sued in Netherlands, and they actually lost that lawsuit because they had to come out with guidelines that they didn't have. At the end of the day, they had to actually come up with a climate action plan, which is where we should be headed right now, that we're talking about, moving out from fossil fuels. It's not wise for us to invest money in something that is being phased out. But however, if we are going to benefit, let's make sure that we are also being environmental friendly, and that would be my take on that. Well, away from that, we also want to take a look at what is happening across the country. Now, this morning we did start off with a little bit of rains across several places within Kampala and of course the Lake Victoria Basin, but looks like that system is starting to clear, and we could be looking at quite more rains developing for Southwestern Uganda, across Midwestern and most areas within at least the central part of the country, Lake Choga region. And more of those rainy systems continue to develop, especially across the islands of Lake Victoria. But we'll go ahead and take a look at the forecast that is also coming in from the Uganda National Meteorological Authority, and the numbers that we expect today. We're seeing quite a chilly day across most areas within Central and the Lake Victoria Basin, and that could also continue into the afternoon as more rains are expected. But with the forecast, we start off with the eastern parts of Central, where we have Ruwero, Woblenzi, Bururi, and Kaseke. We are forecasting isolated showers, and that will be starting off at a pleasant 26 degrees centigrade. Now, the western parts of Lake Victoria, where we have Masaka, Kalisizo, Sembabule, and Rakai, we're likely to start off with those rains. We already have the system in place for much of that area that will be starting off with a pleasant 26 degrees centigrade. Some of those rains are also expected to cross over into the afternoon. Now, southwestern Uganda starting off with quite a bright and sunny day. That will be with intervals of cloudy conditions as the morning progresses. Quite a warm 26 degrees for you, but we do expect rains later in the evening over that area. Now, the eastern part of Lake Victoria also seems like he's having that approach sunshine, but that will be blending in with clouds later as the morning progresses. Also quite a warm 27 starting off for you right there, and we could be having more of that sun come through even later in the afternoon. Mount Elgon Highlands, where we have Mbale, Bududa, Buko, and Sironko, starting off with a mix of clouds and sun at a warm 27 degrees centigrade, but we do expect some of the rains to come through later in the afternoon across parts of Mount Elgon Highlands. Eastern Uganda, Soroti, Katakwi, Amuria, and Kumi, that is where we expect also a blend of sunshine and clouds, starting off with quite a hot 27 out there, and of course that will also be crossing over into the afternoon, meaning that temperatures will be getting a little bit higher as we head towards evening. Now, central parts of northern Uganda, where we have Gulu, Kitgum, Adjumani, Padel, we're forecasting a mix of clouds and sunshine as well. Also starting off with quite a hot 28 degrees. And of course, that is also expected to cross over into the afternoon. More of that hot weather expected later in the afternoon across that area. Now, the central parts of Lake Victoria Basin, where we have Mukono, Kampala, Entebbe, Wakiso, we also still have those rains in the forecast. We did start off with most of those earlier, but looks like that will be still coming into your morning, and also most of those will cross over into the afternoon. Looks like it is starting off chilly at 25 degrees centigrade. Now, much of the southern sector will actually be having quite some chilly weather, but looks like northern Uganda, Karamoja region and eastern Uganda is starting off quite hot this morning. Temperatures are in the upper 20s, meaning that that could actually be quite uncomfortable. But also as we head into the afternoon, do look out for more rains that are expected across western Uganda as well as the southern part of the country. Well, that is it in terms of weather for this morning. We do have Good Morning Uganda agenda coming up. Later than that, we'll also be having some sports highlights, and after which we'll be looking at Good Morning Uganda Extra. My name is Mollen, Kenyena. I want to wish you a very, very wonderful day.
This is Good Morning Uganda.
Happiness comes to us in many places. It's in knowing the mosquito net keeps our children healthy. The wife having the support of her husband. It's in deciding together when to have a baby. And for some, focusing on what's important right now. So what's your happiness? Make the right health decisions to ensure happiness for you and your family.
Pick of the day on UBC. Was brought to you by
Simply make a small deposit of 99k and pay the balance mpola. You can pay in daily, weekly or even monthly installments while you enjoy your new phone. So what are you doing today? Visit any MTN shop near you and get the MTN cupboard. That's super easy.
Every waking day is a reminder just how beautiful this, our land, truly is. The kind of beauty that you can only find here, in the lush green all around us and the wondrous sights within. It's in the distinct aroma of our cooking, to the taste of food that takes you on a journey, in the sound of homecoming and the sound of Mother Earth. In the magnificence we find on our travels and the exciting moments we experience. Ours is the kind of beauty that comes in all things big and small. All we have to do is awaken our senses and truly enjoy what's uniquely ours. Explore Uganda, the pearl of Africa.
Welcome to English in a Minute, from home. If someone told you to get out of town, would you really have to go anywhere?
Anna, I know we've both always lived in apartments, but last week, I finally bought a house.
Get out of town, you didn't.
I sure did. And it's right down the street from my favorite pizza restaurant.
Oh, pizza. Maybe I should think about buying a house.
You can say, get out of town, when you're surprised or find it hard to believe something someone said. It has the same meaning as phrases like, get out of here, you're kidding, or no way. And that's English in a Minute.
It's back! After 2 years away, the Uganda International Trade Fair is back!
The Uganda Manufacturers Association excitedly invites you to the 28th Uganda International Trade Fair from October 3rd to October 10th. Visit more than 1,000 manufacturers, traders, distributors, and business people from all sectors at the UMA Showgrounds in Lugogo. We are back to innovation, products, and world-class manufacturing excellence. Entrance fee is 10,000 shillings only. Select manufacturers will offer discounted prices of up to 50%. Enjoy live performances from your favorite artists as we celebrate 60 years of Uganda's independence. To book space, call 0703 552 444.
Forget last season. Forget the oohs and the ahs. Forget every moment that stole the show, because the real show is here on GoTV. It's the new season. It's action-packed and it's going to be non-stop football. With over 1,000 games from more than 7 leagues and cup competitions plus a World Cup. Make sure you get the best seat in the house this new football season. Get a GoCoder with 1 month of GoTV value for only 25,000 Uganda shillings and enjoy non-stop football. GoTV Uganda. Love it.
Live from Now Avenue in UBC Studios. This is Good Morning Uganda.
A lovely morning, and thank you for keeping it with us from 6:30 till now. This is Good Morning Uganda, your weekly morning show here on UBC TV. So just a reminder, make it a date, ensure by 6:30 you're with us, and we drive it all the way till 9. Now, this morning we are discussing something that many Ugandans today are discussing. I know if you're moving around, you'll hear the word economy. Then you wonder what has happened. Is it a new part of our vocabulary? You demand someone, they will tell you, aren't you seeing the economy? But the economy has always been there. Now, what is the problem with the economy? Well, if we remember very well, this financial year, 2022-2023, it was very clear that we have a national budget of, that is 48.5 trillion. And this budget, we are supposed to domestically collect, that is 25 trillion. Now, people are talking about being broke, there isn't sufficient money. And when we look at the Ministry of Finance, the first quarter of this financial year, they were supposed to release, that is about 8 trillion in the first quarter. Now, government was able to release, that is about 4.6 trillion out of the 8 trillion. That is what government released for the first quarter. Now we are waiting for what they are going to release for the second quarter. What does that mean? It was already not about 3.3 something trillion wasn't released to the economy. And that also said, you find that 30% of our budget is going to, that is public debt servicing. Now, joining me on set is a man called Julius Mukunda, who happens to be the ED of the Civil Society Budget Advocacy Group.
Oh, today
now,
got it.
Very interesting here. Civil society has always said, government, you should do this, do this. Now, this time round in the entire budget planning, civil society is included. Julius, good morning.
Good morning. Glad you got my organization name this time very corrected.
Yeah, you see, it's good to learn from your mistakes. But I also want to open up. Julius, did you ill-advise?
Robert, no, we don't do that.
Did you matutomeza? Exactly. What happened that things seem, first let's help us get the genesis. Why are things with all the technical people we have, with the sharp people in civil society, what didn't we envisage? Because experts are telling us that even the situation may be worse later.
No, I think it's important to understand where we are coming from. That the 2 years of COVID really affected us a lot. More than $2 trillion we could not even collect it in terms of revenue shortfalls. most of businesses collapsed. Employment went down. Children did not go to school. And remember, even when I was here last time, we were talking about that. We have not even seen the ugly face of the effect of COVID. We have not seen it because people probably are still surviving on some or other alternatives. But I can tell you is that really shutting down an economy, not functioning fully for 2 years, has a very, very big impact, even for the years to come. Now, before we could also get into all of that, then our supplies distribution was also affected. Because when the big powers started fighting in Ukraine, definitely a number of things were disrupted. But the most important, of course, it is the oil that became a challenge. The other thing that came in, of course, was that we did not get a very good harvest in the last season. So coupled with all of that, then you are in this particular situation. But I think most importantly also is our inability as a country or as a government to be able to make some very, very, very hard decisions in this time of crisis, and tend to do business as usual. And I will give you an example. During COVID, there was this whole push from us, most especially, that since this COVID, everybody is shutting down borders. It is time to do an inward looking and see where should we put our money that can bring quick returns. To our shock, you find that there were still sectors. I mean, the IGG came up and found out that these guys from Ministry of Agriculture went ahead and paid the school fees, ran agricultural colleges, when actually those colleges were shut down. They were not there. An indication that the mindset of some of our bureaucrats is that things must still remain the way they are, even when you let us all go and eat cassava. In essence, it's like, let us tighten our belts. But then you still find the people who are not tightening the belts the way it's supposed to be. People are saying, no, it's only for you, but not for me. But yet we're all living in the same economy. That itself also has worsened the situation, because you really need to be able to deal with the situation by using your resources. The other important element, I think, is as all of these who are going through this, then of course we're hit by inflation. And last night our PSST was very candid in terms of explaining to the nation what inflation is. You can, in his metaphor, you can have all diseases. You can have malaria, you can have typhoid, but you don't want to have cancer. If you have to choose among all the diseases, you can't choose cancer. You rather say, let me go for malaria. And inflation is like cancer in an economy. Any economy with an inflation problem, let me tell you, that is cancer. You must deal with it head on. You don't deal with it. Unfortunately, all the policy options we have at the particular moment tend to have a cost on some other things that we need. Because with inflation, it means that there is so much money in the saturation. Purchase. That is simple. So which means that the price goes up. So you need to reduce the amount of money in the economy. So if you reduce the way to reduce the amount of money in the economy means that the Bank of Uganda needs to pick out all the money that is around by increasing the central bank rate. So when you increase the central bank rate, it means that banks that are the main source of channeling money into the economy now tend also to increase the loan, the interest rates, which means me and you are going to be hesitant to go and pick a new loan from the bank. That's number one. But also they can tell them to increase their reserves. So if they increase your reserve, it means that the money that you should have given out should actually stay. You have to have more money in the reserve for you. But now, Minister of Finance also having learned from previous experience is that if we are picking all the money from the economy, then we shouldn't dump again more money into the economy. Yes. And that's why you are quoting that figure of, we had an 8 trillion budget for the first quarter. And at the beginning of the quarter, the PSST announced that I'm going to release only 4.6, which means that partly was, let us only pay salaries and let us not again disrupt the efforts of Bank of Uganda to control inflation. If probably they had not done that, maybe now inflation, which is at 9%, would be in double digits now, would be very high and everyone would be crying. But it comes at a cost.
Because Julius, to an ordinary Ugandan watching us this morning, that would seem a tougher pinch because there is cost of money in the economy. It's not there.
Yeah, so exactly now. One is that if you don't spend money, you're not going to expect the growth you want, you are expecting. So probably you are going to have lower expectations. Number two is that when you don't spend money into the economy, it means that if and businesses are not getting loans, it means that employment, people are not going to employ people. So therefore there could be an if you again you go that way, it means that businesses that probably have relied also on loans, whereby me and you are likely to supply them, they are going to probably buy less things from us, and that means that me and you are likely to have less money in our pocket.
For example, that is common of our schools. Many of them rely at the opening of the term, they get the loans expecting that parents will pay.
Delaying to take the kid to school. I was in a parents' meeting and the headmaster was telling us how much each class, a data class has to school, and they find a class that in the pre-COVID period you would have like 20 million by mid-term or by end of by term, but almost half of the class had not cleared their school fees there. So you only had half of the school fees. So in education, things are getting tighter. But I think today is a question of, could we do better? You see, that I think that's the most important part, and I think from that's the conversation I always want to engage on. Yes, could we do better? I think yes, we can do better. You know, yesterday I was attending the launch of the Human Development Report, and it had a very subtle title: Uncertain Times, Unsettled Lives. Reality. The period in which we are, you can't tell how tomorrow is. Yes, and we are finishing COVID and Ebola comes from our neighborhood. So it's uncertain how we are likely to manage. So how do you prepare yourself? How do you prepare your people? and I think for me is to government is the best wealth we can make is through our people. Prepared for this uncertain. One bill away, one medical bill away to be a pauper. Let me tell you the truth. One medical bill away to be a pauper. How do you prepare people these uncertain times? One is, for example, we need to have a national health insurance.
At such a time.
These are the times, this is when we need more than ever before.
Maybe just this will bring me to ask. Yes, because you've told us that one of the ways or that could explain this scarcity of money or the situation we are in is a bid to tame inflation. But then this also brings me to one thing. Do we have the monies as a country that maybe are just holding, having come from the 2 years of COVID-19?
No, you see, me and you can be broke, but no government can be broke. Even Somalia can never be broke. If you go to Somalia, government coffers, you'll find their money. No government can be broke. We tend to think government is broke because if it is not meeting certain targets and priorities, but it's because it has shifted priorities. Let me give you a very good example. PDM, the one I talked about here, and I know you're going to be on my case this time around, but PDM that we talked about.
Baby, you cherish so much and convinced me here that now in this budget, when I look at the money allocated to PDM,
Yes.
it is a magic bullet. If
Magic
well
bullet,
handled.
people-centered, and everything. Could we have even more money for PDM? I could tell you even we can have 5 trillion. But when you have individuals' interest take over national interest, then you're not likely to have the money. So just imagine they've given a district money, 600 million for PDM. And the cow, the planner, the production officer sit in one room and eat all of the money.
Case in cover.
I mean, Kitugumu, Kabari, there is a huge list. And what I'm beginning to look at is that most districts that are poverty stricken are the ones actually who are eating all of the money. That is very sad. So somebody will say, no, government has no money. But money was there, but it was eaten and given to wrong and implemented wrong elements. That's the next grade. The second one is, you are given a project to be completed in 3 years and on budget. It takes 20 years. It is above the budget. I mean, then you will say, now you will start having trouble of financing that kind of project. Why? Because of the inefficiency within the system. So the question of not having money for me, actually I say it's not. It's a question of how we have planned and made priorities within our budget and for it to the latter. You go through the budget, like right now we are in the budget process. It has started for 2023, 2024. By June, you expect everybody to have put in all the priority for funding. To your shock, on the 1st of July, somebody comes with a supplementary budget and said, by the way, I did not think that they would have more science teachers and they would have more people to have their salary increase. So where is that money going to come from? Because it was not planned, it was not budgeted for. And people begin to say, you are broke. Yes, you are going to be broke because
you go for budget cuts.
That budget was not completely that item was not completely budgeted for, and now you begin to ask for a supplementary budget. So those kind of scenarios tend to show government is broke. But in my understanding, government cannot be broke. Only that it is now spending money, shifting priorities from where it had planned to spend money, now to where it's spending money on things that were not planned for at all, that were not part of the budget. So I can never say that the government is broke. Only the government has changed priorities, and which is very, very wrong.
But some of the things are, how would we blame government for that? For example, you have epidemics. Now we look at the other side. You have floods. These are natural disasters.
Very good.
And these require government to inject money. That is where we have budget cuts here and there.
So that's why you see, I'm telling you, we have contingency funding on every budget for epidemics, for floods, and when things.
Yesterday I heard of a big chunk about, we need 10 billion?
Yes, but you see, not only that.
Just managing, to manage this situation. So 10 billion of our budget. Already remember 30% of the budget is going to debt financing. Now you have the 70. Here comes disaster.
You see, and I think that's the point you are trying to make. That and what we're trying to say is, you see, unpredictable, unabsorbable, unavoidable. Those things qualify for a supplementary budget. You come and say, let me use, I wanted the money for the renewing of national ID.
Mass renewal.
That item was predictable. That item can be avoided this financial year and we do it the next financial year. It does not qualify to be a supplementary budget. But you come and cause a commotion that you need money to renew national IDs. So if that money is given to you, definitely it's going to be cut from places where money had been budgeted for, and those areas will not have money for that particular financial year. So being disciplined, what we call fiscal discipline, can help us to achieve the targets that we want. But fiscal indiscipline on our side makes us lose our targets, our focus on how we can achieve the development that we want. So to help our communities in these uncertainty times become of a challenge. That's why now you have famine in Karamoja. You think we have famine in Karamoja because we don't have money, Robert? I don't think so. Poor planning. Because if we know that these areas are prone to drought, what have we planned as a government to ensure that these areas do not suffer from famine? That's what
long-term planning, not this surgical operation.
Yes, not
relief.
Because Karamoja will tell you they have 3 problems: water. Period. Couldn't we have done that for the last 30 years? We have been around for this part of the region. We know Bududa, Kasese. Whenever it rains, immediately you will see headlines: Bududa, Kasese, floods and landslides. What have we planned for those particular areas, knowing there are floods that are likely to come during rainy season? And God blessed us, we have 2 seasons in a year, and rains do come. So lack of proper planning, fiscal indiscipline, makes us mess up a number of things. And I think for me these are the things we need to begin to tackle and address.
Very interesting. Our viewers, just to remind you, you can be part of the topic of discussion this lovely Thursday morning by simply going to your phone and send us a text message on the number on your screen or a WhatsApp message. The number is 0709 60 25 92, 0709 60 25 92, and I guarantee you I'll read out the messages for my guest in studio, that is Julius Mukunda, who happens to be, that is the ED of Civil Society Budget Advocacy Group. Now, these people are experts in advising, in coming up with alternatives to our budget. Just like he's mentioning some of them, physical discipline, but also looking at how best we plan. Because yes, a budget is your expected revenue and planned expenditure. So if you mess in planning, definitely you're bound to have these challenges. Now, Julius, we've talked about government, but I also want us to look at some of the measures they have put in place to ensure that business community, both informal, formal, find a bounce back or shock absorbers to these. Are these practical? Do we see them? Can they be a sailing boat in the storm that we are currently finding, or they are more of not practical enough? When you tell the Kasitas we have about 200 billion there for you, schools, we have this kind of loans, you hear Uganda Development Bank, we have this, there, that. All these, can they be really of relevancy at this particular time?
So yes, like you mentioned, I mean, there are a number of reforms, there are a number of measures, relief measures government has put in place. I mean, remember even during COVID, they told businesses that had loans, please, you can have your loans extended for a particular time, and that won't affect your credit rating. And so loan restructuring has been going on, and that worked for so many businesses because trillions of Ugandan shillings were actually restructured in terms of loans. But I think specifically is you have the small and medium enterprise fund for smaller scale businesses. You have UDB, more than 600 billion that has been recapitalized with it. You have UDC that goes for equity for that. But there is one big challenge that we face in this country, that everything in this country is informal. Not everything, but a number of things in this country are informal. More than 90, a bigger percentage of business are informal. So when you go to get money in the bank, even if it is government, even if it is a government money, you find you cannot qualify because they will ask you that bring the last 2 audited reports. Even you don't know the word audit in your business dealings.
Recently, I've seen business people struggling with IFLIS.
I mean, so
how do I move
those are
with this?
stumbling blocks to the a number of programs that the government has put in place. So that's why now the SME fund, for example, is still redundant. Very few companies have been able to access it because of the stringent measures that are on them. These stringent measures are helping us so people don't run away with money. Because you see, we have a mentality in this country that when the government gives out a program, it is free. And anybody who fronts himself is planning so hard to eat the money and not pay back. So to avoid that, you put those stringent measures. But when you put those stringent measures, then it also stops those those businesses that are really very genuine, wanted the money, use it and pay back, but they don't have the qualifications necessary to access this particular funding. So that is one of the biggest problems. So when this money is there, probably members in Kasita and a number of them cannot access it because you don't have an audit report, your business is not even registered, your business is just all in the head, you are kayungiri somewhere, but you have been making money. So in which way can we build a business profile for such a kind of people? And I think that's very key and very important to address. But most important, I think for me, is the PDM that came, that people have started messing it up. If we can implement it correctly, because for it doesn't have these stringent measures and it goes directed at a parish level, then these businesses can actually now go at the parish level to access these particular monies. Because they won't be asking you three-year audit reports, your annual report, your board minutes. No, they won't be asking you those ones. The qualifications are slightly simpler than what these banks will be asking. But I think the other big challenge also is that banks have their own money. If you're a Stanbic and you have, like $1 billion to give out at an interest rate of 17 to 20%, and there is a government program telling you, please, we have our small money, can you please top up, and then you give at a cheaper rate than what your commercial rate is. That is very difficult. That's why you find banks are hesitant really to do that, because they have their own money to sell, and these banks are there to make money, to make profits. So really doing it is a social corporate responsibility on the part of government, and that's why we have been saying, invest in your own banks, put money in your own banks. Let's have our own cooperative bank. Let's start our own commercial bank, if that's what is the case, so that we get all of this money and pump it in. And the bank would definitely be targeting the people that we are looking out for. But the challenge is that now these banks, and it's genuine that I have my own portfolio, which I am selling at a particular rate, and you are telling me that I should actually join you and sell at a cheaper rate. So it doesn't make a business case for some of these particular banks. So that's why people are actually saying that you go to the bank, you ask for it, they say, no, this one is a bit complicated, but we can give you ours. It is better, you can be able to take it. So that is something that I think government really needs to think very seriously about. That if we were to increase performance, if we were to increase access for these funds to reach everybody in this country, there must be a different channel on how this money should be able to go. And I wouldn't worry if this channel goes to PDM. I know people are going to say, oh, money is being eaten in PDM. Eating money in PDM wouldn't have been a problem, but I think the system to capture the thieves
is the problem.
Is the problem.
Because if the system is effective, then it will be deterrent.
No, it will be deterrent. I mean, if, for example, you've eaten the money, and I remember I was on one platform, I said, in Japan, when you eat government money, and it is found out, you kill yourself. You go and hang yourself. In China, they quickly kill you. But here in Uganda, Robert, me and you, we know what happens when people eat money. First is, can you please pay back? Really? Pay back the money? Then somebody says, things that tough, he becomes a member of parliament. Then things, when they put you in prison, then your community.
The clan men
come and protest that why are we arresting our son. That's the state of fighting corruption in this country. So, if we can have a very good system, because don't worry, people, even in the US, I just saw in the advert, some people ate 250 million US dollars for pandemic. It was meant for pandemic. People just ate it. But you see, it's not about eating. It's the system. It's the system there to capture the thieves and lock them up forever.
Well, viewer, I'm with Julius Mukunda from that is CES Bag, and we are discussing financial, finding lasting solutions to the economic hardships we are going through now. Julius, we've dwelled so much on government side. I want us to look at the private sector and at individual level. If really there is a way that can be done at individual level and also in the private sector, because much of our economy depends on the private sector.
Yes,
definitely.
Yes, I think there are a number of things I think we can do, private sector. But you see, private sector cannot live in isolation from government. The conducive environment of the private sector to thrive. I think that's very important. Number one is to have interest rates reduced and deliberately reduced down. You can't run a business in this country at an interest rate above 30%. It's impossible. I'm telling whoever is making profits in this country, it's a miracle at that particular rate. Secondly, are the issues to deal with markets. We can't pride ourselves to be in the East African community when one of our border is very restricted in terms of accessing goods and services. When another border, the border officer, when he walks up on the wrong side of the bed, stops some of our products from accessing those particular markets. I think we need to deliberately invest in marketing of Ugandan goods and services. These ambassadors we have in all these countries, what are they doing in helping Ugandans access markets of our products? Why should we be suffering to sell our eggs in Kenya, for example, when we know that the demand for eggs in West Africa is so high? Why should we suffer fighting the Kenyans and selling them our milk, when we know that the demand in North America, in North Africa for milk is so high? So if we are able to do that, then and for private sector, the only equation we need to solve is the market equation. I can tell you, in this country, if you stand up and say there is market for maize, me and you will leave Kampala and go and grow maize because we are assured of the market. If we tell Ugandans that, please, there is a market for pineapple, I could to make it even more complicated, a market for squared watermelon. Let me tell you, me and you, we will go and look for an extension officer, we will look for an agricultural research officer to help us to grow squared melon for a Japanese market.
Let me just read out some of the messages here now. Hello, good morning, Uganda. I'm Rogers Mugisha. We need to cut government expenditure on parliament. Uganda to develop doesn't need 529 parliamentarians. They contribute to inflation. Thanks, in Mukono. Then also have one, good morning UBC, Mr. Mukunda is advocating for Uganda's hard-earned money to go to Kayungirizi people. Business should be organized. Having audited books of accounts is not rocket science. Mr. Mukunda, please apologize. Kagugube Uma from Kanungu. Then also we have this one. Lovely program. Why this day government places a lot of money on projects which is not worth the amount? For example, 25 billion compensated to DRC Congo and sending 30% funding to government schools instead of 100%. Well, allow me, and with those, time is also much on my side. I have a minute or two, but there's someone interesting here. No, but in Kampala, how long does it take the concerned authorities to always find a solution to a problem? Every region in this country had a cash crop that they were earning from. Therefore, the major problem is reviving those sectors, not PDM. Mechanized agriculture, supply, fertilizers, irrigation, equipment, among others. Let's end with those, and let me have your final remarks factoring in the questions.
Thanks so much. I think, again, most of them are compliments, but I think our colleague from Kanungu
said you're advocating for...
Yes, Kayungiris. And it's not advocating for Kayungiris, I think. It is appreciating the challenges we have. You see, the moment you begin to put your head in the sand and think the problem doesn't exist, then you are in for a shock. All we are trying to say is, and like I will tell you an experience. There's a banker from New York who has been in New York. He was working in a bank in New York, and she's here in Uganda. She said, every time a customer enters our bank to ask for a loan, we have already known his loan profile. We know you are not paying, you have problems of paying back your loan. And thus, we want to understand why you are not paying back your loan, and deal with you from that perspective of helping you, that if we give you money, you should be able to pay back. But here, the moment you enter the bank, they say, they close up your book. So we are trying to say that if you have no capacity to develop audited accounts, how can government help you, or how can you be helped to have proper accounting records? So that even if I live in Kanungu or in Chisoro or in Koboko, I can have the minimum basics of how a business record looks like, that any financial institution can rely on it to be able to give me particular money. But I think as we end this, Robert, it's important also to be able to urge government, and I think there's a point that was made in terms of expenditure. We are not cutting enough, and we need to cut further, because I don't want to see new government vehicles on the road, for example, because we are in a tight situation. The other part is I want to be a bit more efficient, that if there are leakages in the system, I want somebody to go and hit on people's head very quickly. That if you have eaten a PDM money, I want to see you handcuffed properly and you are thrown in jail. And immediately we recover our money. If we do those things, then we shall have enough money on our disposal to be helping our Ugandans, wherever they are, to deal with these uncertainty times that continue to come up. And but also is that as the rain is coming, we are hoping that we can have a bumper harvest, and probably inflation can be able to calm down, and we can now start to see more government investments in our economy.
Well, I want to thank you so much, Julius Mukunda, who happens to be the ED Civil Society Budget Advocacy Group, CSBAG, for your time and, of course, this very informative discussion. Now Ugandans know why government releases a few money into circulation, but also we understand, and I hope the advice has been taken while we're speaking to the powers that be in this area. See you. Good morning, Uganda Extra. I'll leave you with the sportsman, Ruben, to give you all the updates and those catchy stories in the world of sports.
Oh.
One-on-one with Michael Jordan Lukomwa.
A weekly face-to-face conversation focusing on accountability, inspiration, information, and sensitization of the public from the various sources, such as inspirational profiles.
Having a disability is not inability.
Professional guidance.
There is no special antiretroviral therapy that is given specifically for discordant couples.
And of course, politics.
Don't you see anywhere that you would give a credit in the fight against COVID?
My role as the owner of the country is not to, be preoccupied by giving credit to my servant.
We have said that if we are to talk to General Museveni, there must be certain conditions in place.
Is it true that you paid 5 million shillings to MPs that voted for Anita Mong and Tayebo?
That is laughable. Why would we pay when we have nominated them as SEC?
Every party has been represented in Uganda's parliament for 10 years. We only by one MP. You yourself and my daughter, Susan.
Every Friday 9 p.m. it's One-on-One with Michael Jordan Lukomwa on UBC TV, inspiring Uganda.
We bring you a fresh, well-researched program to help you identify opportunities for investment, job creation, growing your entrepreneurial skills, wealth creation, and social transformation.
We have a product that is ready for schools, supermarkets.
Create wealth, transform livelihoods. Every week we showcase opportunities for creating new products and services.
I now harvest a lot of cocoa. When I harvest it, I sell. After sale,